cultural identity is, I think, something we all have struggled with.
I mean, at certain times when you're, growing up and stuff, it does feel like a struggle. At some point, some days I thought, wow, I don't fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
The world is bleak. Like, I've got nobody.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Nomadic Mic. Today, I am joined by a very close friend whom I've known for, I think, 9 years now. 9 years is a very long time in a person's life because, especially at the time of life that we are right now, we're in like the second half of our 20s, which might sound familiar to you guys because I just had John on as well. And I met Robin in a very similar fashion in one of the first days of university. And I knew what she was like back then. And now she's like this full-on artist who's pursuing art full-time. And she's got her own style that she's known for around Hong Kong and around parts of the world. Like, people recognize her for the kind of art that she makes. And it's just phenomenal because I'm like moved when I am exposed to her art, because I know it doesn't just come from a place of her having fun with it. It also has its roots in her cultural identity. So a lot of you might be struggling with your cultural identity in some type of way. It's the experience of being a third culture kid. But we have a guest over here who's found a way to express that through her art, and a lot of us kind of find comfort in that, including myself. So without further ado, Robin, welcome to the Nomadic Mic. That was off the top of the dome. I'm telling
crazy.
you, we do this.
So
this is what we do. Nah, but for real, cultural identity. Wow, it's so hard to say. Cultural identity is, I think, something we all have struggled with. Do you think struggle is the right term to use here?
I mean, at certain times when you're, growing up and stuff, it does feel like a struggle because it feels like the end of the world if you're not fitting in somewhere,
Yeah.
And I think
Facts.
now looking back, it's like, okay, that was character development. I needed that to happen for me to be wholeheartedly who I am today and feeling comfortable with who I am. So now looking back, it's like, okay, it wasn't that bad. It added to who we are. But at some point, some days I thought, like, wow, I don't fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
The world is bleak. Like, I've got nobody, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's actually not that bad. It sounds it sounds like the end of the world the way that you just put it. But honestly, at the time of life that you're referring to, I felt that way as well. Like, my parents are Indian. That makes me Indian, but
Right.
I was born and raised in Hong Kong.
Right.
But I wasn't raised around a lot of other Indian people, so I never found that cultural affinity. A lot of my friends were like white, Chinese, a couple black people. That was like my mix.
Right.
And then when I did finally start meeting Indian people after university, I felt so lost because they basically looked at me like I was a white person.
Right.
And which was like cool, but at the same time it created this greater rift between me and the culture. As much as I would want to assimilate, I feel like every time I would step into it, someone or the other would be like, damn, you are so white. Like, you are not a brown person. And then, I feel like I'd heard that enough where I eventually made that my personality. Like, I am that white guy, so I'm going to refuse to speak in Hindi. In Hong Kong, at least, I'm going to refuse to listen to Bollywood music and all this other stuff.
Damn.
So I created that rift in my own head, but then it's from these external influences. But what has your experience been like being, first of all, tell us where you're from.
Okay, so I'm South African, but I grew up pretty much in Hong Kong. So I moved over here when I was 10 years old. But I'm from a mixed race family. So my mom is Indian and my dad is colored. So in South Africa, he's referred to as colored. But my parents never talked about race, surprisingly. Coming from where we are, like, they never talked about race. So you know, I remember in the first grade, I got detention because they were doing quotas, where they would they would call out a race, and then you put your hand up and they count. And because I was so unsure of what I was, I just put my hand up for everything, and I got my first detention because they thought I did it on purpose. And it was this day that my dad lost his shit, basically, and he was mostly mad at the fact that I kept my hand up for whites as well, because he was like, how dare you, so you thought you were white this whole time? And it was like, okay, I know. So that conversation made me realize, okay, I'm definitely not white, but it didn't answer any other questions at that point.
Yeah.
And as I said, my mom's Indian, but she's 5th generation South African, so culturally we're very South African. And then moving to Hong Kong at the age of 10 adds a whole other layer of confusion, because it's like, okay, people say that I look like I'm from Pakistan.
Oh.
Some people tell me I look like I'm Indian, so I was like, okay, let me be that. I know my mom's Indian, so I can kind of like, okay, fine, yeah, I'm gonna be Indian.
Yeah.
And I was meeting like a lot of Indian kids, and I started straightening my hair to fit in more, and then at some point it was like, okay, I'm trying really hard here, and it's not getting me anywhere.
Yeah.
So let's just try to get the hair back to health.
Yeah.
And then once the hair was back to normal, then it was like, okay, let me just try and figure it out for myself, like what I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you start accepting kind of what you looked like, letting your hair become curly again? When did that kick off?
So it was like towards the end of high school. I think it was maybe like year 11 is when I tried to get my curly hair. It was so damaged though, so it took years to come back properly.
Yeah.
But year 11 is kind of when I was like, okay, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much going on in life right now. At that time, you're worried about so much in terms of school and everything, you know, like the future feels like it's closing it. Like, you know, you're worried about uni coming up, this. Yeah. At that point, it's like, okay, who the fuck I am is least of my worries right now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And it didn't make me any less confused. It just made me care less about what other people were trying to, because the only reason that we try to put a label on it is for other people to understand and be able to digest what I am, where I'm from. And at that point I was just kind of like, even if I say what I want to say, even if I tell them I mix, even if I tell them where I'm from, they're going to tell me, oh, well, you don't look like a South African. It's like, okay, what does a South African look like? Or I'd hear things like, oh, you're mixed, but you don't look like this, or you don't look like that. Oh, can you speak Hindi? And I was like, no, I can't. Like, my mom's 5th generation. It's like, then how do you know that you're Indian then? But then it's like, why am I even fishing for answers for your sake? Yeah. You know, at that point, when people ask me where I was from, I just say South Africa. Yeah. I grew up here. Yeah. And leaving it at that, not having to feel the need to really explain or anything. Because if you're that curious, then like maybe you should do my family history and research that shit, because I'm not going to do it. So, yeah, I think a big part of accepting it was just not caring anymore about other people's comfort.
Yeah, the thing you just said about labels and us labeling ourselves to give other people an easier time in recognizing who we are is so true. We do live in a world where we're labeling things and ourselves all the time. And somehow these labels almost distill us as people. And because we use labels so frequently, I'm afraid that we start to distill ourselves in our own eyes as well. And I think distilling yourself is somewhat limits expression, which is why I really like I don't know if I'd even call it an alter ego, because I do imagine you creating art is you at your most wholesome self, you when you recognize yourself as being a whole person with complexity of emotion, identity, because I imagine all of that comes out in the work, right? But what I have wondered about your work is you draw a lot of like how you would characterize them as like ugly faces. Why is this ugly face style of art a consistent feature? Is it to stay on brand as an artist, or is it because that is just a very natural expression of how you see the world and how you see people?
I think it's just, it kind of started, like, as I said, well, no, I said this in a personal conversation. I didn't say this here.
Mm-hmm.
But as I have mentioned to you before, it's a lot of my art comes from the lack of esteem or confidence, or like just feeling so small, right? And this comes from not only the, you know, the confusion of identity and this. It's also beauty standards in general. Because when I was growing up, right, we used to go back to South Africa quite often. I used to feel beautiful over there, you know. I feel like I fit in, but also people would tell me that I'm cute or I'm pretty, or, you know, you feel yourself. I used to feel myself in South Africa. And then when I came to Hong Kong is when I felt the shift. And it was very, very obvious, you know, like it was kind of like, okay, I don't know what this feeling is, but it makes me feel small, and it makes me feel like running away. Every time I'm in the MTR or at school or something like this is how I used to feel. And I think like also when I was in primary school here, I used to have, there was somebody who used to put Tic Tacs in my hair. Okay. And this used to be like the most traumatizing thing that you can do to a kid also, because it's like, you know, sometimes the sweets would fall out of my hair or something when I'm standing up to like do something in class or whatever. And this just adds to that feeling of being ugly, right? And a lot of the doodles that I do is unconventional beauty. So it's not necessarily ugly, but some people will call it ugly, right? And some people might see it as unattractive features, whether it means, I don't know, my haggard hair. I was called haggard for a while. Or I don't know, but I love it. Like, and also the way that it looks in my work, I really, really love it. Cause like you've got blue people, pink people, and they might have the bushy hair or bushy eyebrows or this, that, the other thing, and they still look beautiful. So it's more of a celebration than it is kind of like, and it has become a habit. So it is something that I love drawing, but it's just these beautiful characters with unconventional characteristics, like features. And it all stems from feeling so small and being embarrassed about these kind of things. But like now it's just kind of like, I don't care, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of being an artist. It's the beauty of being an artist, and it's also the responsibility of being artists to hold up a mirror to society, right? Like we hear about this a lot when we study art. A lot of art is just a representation of the times in which the artist lives in. What kind of feedback do you normally get from people who view your art, apart from like the wows and wow, this is so amazing, like that's a given, but beyond that, what kind of conversations have you had around your art?
I guess like with the most recent collection that I had called Your Eyes or Mine, it was something that I didn't want to put out at first because it felt really personal to me, because it's more story based than it is doodle based like my other stuff.
Yeah.
And something that I was really happy to hear is that people related to the stories, or people have been in certain situations that are the same as what I'm depicting. And this is the most meaningful kind of interactions that I enjoy, because you know, like I know that it's something small, but it's something that we do connect on a, you know, I think my stories and the way that the things that I'm drawing is something that people can relate to on a universal level.
Totally.
But sometimes it's just that touchy, weird thing that you don't really want to talk about. Yeah, until like somebody else brings it up.
Like what?
For example, the one piece that I have is called Rose Tinted Dates, right? And this is about dating in general, but it's also about expectations and managing your expectations, but also like dealing with disappointment, because you know how some people like prepare for the worst. I'm one of those people.
Nice.
So
that's a good trait to have.
I'm really one of those people, but sometimes I catch myself and I'm just like, oh, imagine like it's gonna go like this and this and this and this. And even if I'm not referring that to a date, maybe I'm talking about an interview or something else, some other interaction, and I overplay it in my mind until I'm like, okay, let's be realistic, it's not going to happen that way. And this one sparked so many conversations when I was presenting it to people. They felt inclined to share their stories with me. And I really like that, because then it doesn't feel like a one-side presentation. It feels like, okay, not only do you feel the same thing and resonate, like you want to share with me as well. And I really loved that. I really appreciated that.
Wow. When was your first interaction like that?
Oh, like Shaytron.
Recently? So like 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
because the thing is, you've been doing this work for maybe like 2 years now.
Yeah. I've been having like little exhibitions for like 2 years now.
For about 2 years.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that you experienced that. Why do you think that is?
I guess it's the first time that I've done something story based, where I not only is it something that's real and tangible and something that I was feeling like it's something personal to me.
Yeah.
But I think because it's something personal to me.
Yeah.
In terms of the individual experience of that I'm depicting, it means that when I'm presenting it, I'm talking about my proper experience and how it made me feel in the moment. When I'm talking about other things, even though it stems from really touchy places, there's no need to go into it. And I don't feel if somebody is complimenting the colors and the patterns, there's no need for me to bring my trauma into it.
Yeah, like the red represents my Totally. Oh, that's so interesting. So for example, we started this conversation off with me asking you about cultural identity, right? And that's kind of stemmed into stories, right? But would you say when you started doing your exhibitions, you would do commentary on your work, kind of like saying, oh, this is about cultural identity, or this is about this, versus Shaytron when you were like telling stories instead?
I think in terms of me talking, it's really developed a lot in the past 6 months.
Okay.
Just because I'm introverted, but I'm also a little bit shy and a little bit awkward, and I know it, right?
Yeah.
So before, when it came to like presenting things, I didn't really present it, to be honest. I would give the title and say, this is it, you know? And with going full-time in August meant that I need to be pushing myself out there. I need to be talking to people. I have to network. And this is a constant struggle, but it's also something that I need to give myself props for like, I think I've come quite far in the past couple months.
Cool.
To get to that point in that show 2 months ago, talking like not only telling you the name of the piece, telling you where it came from, what the inspiration was, how I started drawing it, what I was watching when I was drawing it. I was really going into detail just because I wanted people to like actually know me as an artist as well, and not just the work. And also make the connection, like understand the connection between myself and the pieces. Just because I think it's important to know like how personal it is.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about going into something full-time. I think when you focus on one thing for an extended period of time, it really allows you to form or develop your character around that thing that you're focusing on. One of our early episodes was with this artist called Seb Xavier, who's London-based. And at the time when I was exposed to his work, I always used to wonder, like, how is he able to make such moving pieces of art? How is a human being able to do this, let alone a human being that's my age?
That's crazy.
How is he able to do that? And through our interview, I discovered that he just does this full time. Like, this is how he makes money. Whereas I was just podcasting barely even part time. Now this is like a full time thing, which is why the set's been able to evolve. And, you know, the level of conversation that we're able to have has evolved as well. But these are the clues I'm gathering from what you're saying as well. You started this thing 2 years ago, but after you gave yourself entirely to this work, you've been able to develop not just artistically, but also develop other skills like presentation, but also expressing yourself through words, connecting with other human beings through stories, maybe even telling better stories because you've had more time to get in touch with yourself, you know? Yeah, it's really nice to hear. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's next for you?
I don't know, to be honest. And I think I'm comfortable with not knowing right now. I like what I'm doing right now, and I like the upcoming projects, and I like the fact that things remain personal and very close to my heart. I think that's going to be the constant theme throughout everything that I do. I am excited to be experimenting a little bit more. Like, I've started little clay works. I'm going to try to make those bigger. Everything is trial and error at this point. Like I'm just trying to, because I'm very comfortable with my doodles, but it would be nice to see them in other mediums.
Yeah. Wow, that's true. I've actually seen your doodles in several different mediums, and that's given me a lot of context is not the right word, but it's helped me see what the potential of your work is, you know, which I think is a lesson for other people who are pursuing art in any of its forms. So whether that's fine art, such as what you're doing, music, podcasting, anything, whatever it is, I think the context in which your art appears really matters. Because if people only saw your art on Instagram, I don't think it would have the same effect as what it has today, because now your art's being hung up in restaurants. It's being shown in exhibitions. People have them hung up in their homes. You know, like your art has had a wide reach around the city at least, right?
Right.
And for that reason, it's picking up momentum, and it's building meaning because it exists in different spaces.
That's true. That's pretty overwhelming, actually, to think of it like that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's the truth.
Yeah, I guess. Like, damn, actually, you put me on the spot now, because I'm like, whoa, actually, I kind of accomplished a lot in the last couple months.
Sorry, not sorry. I mean, it's facts. But, I mean, that's also why I think, you know, without gassing you up too much, I think that's also why it serves as an inspiring story for, let's say, someone who's younger than you, or someone who's not as far along in the journey, who wants to do something similar. Maybe they do recognize a talent within themselves that they want to share with the world, but they're unable to share it because of blockages. What kind of blockages have you experienced, or did you experience early on before you broke out of those gates?
Honestly, it was all internal. I think that's the problem with everybody, really, especially as an artist. Like, as a creative, I feel like we tend to be our harshest critic, right? So we know that what we're capable of, but sometimes we remain in that space. Okay, like, I know I can do this and I can do it well, so I'm gonna stay here. But I think it's kind of a responsibility to ourselves to trust that, you know, we're capable of pushing it further, and the only competition you have is yourself. Because if you don't want to ever be creating the same things and staying in the same place, right? So just to keep evolving and everything, I just think you need to stop listening to that voice in your head that tells you, like, okay, maybe people aren't gonna like this, or maybe this isn't good enough. It's okay to have those thoughts, but you'd be very surprised by the first thing that you put out, you know, the response that you get, whether there is a response or not. But consistency is everything, I think. And I think, you know, we have these conversations all the time. Like, now looking back at previous work, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Like, it looked awful. But at the same time, I'm glad that I did that, because, like, there's evidence of a progression, first of all, but there's also something to be proud of. Like, I can be proud of who I am today, because I know what it took to come from that little doodle to like making a little clay model of it, right? And like, that's the small wins we have to celebrate that as well. Like, I wish my winning tune in my head was as loud as my overthinking sometimes, because I might have progressed way faster than I did, you know? So it's just, we do this to ourselves.
It's true. It's so true. What are a few of the things that you had to go through on the journey that other people might not be so aware of? I mean, of course, whatever you're comfortable sharing, but if anyone were to go onto your Instagram, it's I mean, Steven and I talk about this quite frequently, since we work in the same space. We talk about personal branding quite a bit, because obviously
over here.
I mean, we talk, man, you know, we talk. But one of the questions that's come up is, who in our circle has a strong personal brand? And for me, I think you have a really strong personal brand, whether or not you're aware of it. And again, I don't mean to like put you on the spot or overwhelm you with any of this stuff, but I'll tell you what the components of your strong personal brand are. I think it's one of them is expressing yourself through your art and consistently posting that. 2 is showing your face, and every now and again, like just being, I wouldn't even use the word vulnerable. I'd just say just real, showing people where you live, how you do your work, showing that because you're kind of weird, you showing that like quirky, weird side of you. And that's all like very relatable, Right. It's super relatable. And I think relatability is what takes a brand far, because that's also a very strong tenet of your work. Right. Is people discover relatability with the stories and the narratives in your work, right?
That's so interesting, actually. That is so interesting that you bring this up. Because I wouldn't have thought of it like this. And the reason that I started posting more of myself is because my name, Rob. Yeah. I didn't want people to think. So I had gotten a few messages for more of the provocative animations that I had done.
Right. There are a couple of provocative animations. Yeah, I agree.
And some people thought it was a guy running the account. Okay. And said like, okay, so you're comfortable sexualizing women like this. Uh-huh. And instead of it being like, okay, hey, I'm actually a woman. Yeah. Or like posting myself like.
In case it wasn't clear.
Yeah. I just decided like, okay, let me post like a process video or something. At least like I can be doing something instead of like awkwardly like, So that's how the first one went up. And I think like what was the first process? I don't even remember which one it was. But there's also, once I started doing that and having that thought, okay, like let me put myself up there sometime just so people know that, okay, Rob is a woman, so I'm painting sexual stuff because I'm not sexualizing women. I might just be drawing myself. I don't know. But other than that, it became a thing where whenever I start painting or something, then I have that thought like, okay, now I need to set up the camera. Now I need to do this. And I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to paint right now because I don't want to deal with all that. Yeah. And then that's why there's so many videos of me figuring things out on the camera, because then it would be like, okay, I should do something though. And then it's like, yeah, but I don't feel like doing what I would usually do. So like me. And then a lot of the footage is just me sitting there like, let's figure it out. We're going to figure out what we're going to do. Cool. But I like those videos because I think any creative can relate to that, because everyone has those moments. Yeah. And it's like sometimes you get distracted and sometimes you're trying your best, but that's not when you're supposed to be inspired then. That's
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, like I think your reels have probably inspired some of my future reels that the world hasn't seen yet, because dude, making covers for these episodes takes hours. And because when I start off with that blank canvas, I have no idea how anything is going to turn out. Exactly. It's all just a happy accident by the end of it. But wait, did you take art in high school?
I did.
You did take art in high school. Yeah. How many artists from that high school class do you know that are still doing art today?
Oh, from high school?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really didn't keep in touch with many people. Wait, did I? I don't think so. Either I didn't keep in touch or no one's still doing art. Yeah. At this moment, I'm not sure. I need to double check that. But
sure.
Damn, I might be forgetting somebody right now. But I guess like also the artists that actually took art. Yeah. Ended up in SCAD with us.
Oh.
Right?
I don't know.
I think so.
The reason I'm asking, right, is because I didn't take any art subjects in high school. I didn't fall into it either. Like this was a very
damn, I thought you were gonna say like, oh, you don't remember such and such.
Oh no, I wouldn't. Like, whoa. I wouldn't do you like that. I think the reason I'm asking is because we have a few members of the audience, and in the future anybody watching this episode who might still be in high school or in their early years of university. And it's a very special time because despite all the pressures that you might have from your parents or from society at large, wherever you live, to go into a specific career, right? Because now we live in a world where technology is advancing so fast the wise decision would be to get into some sort of a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, or math field, to not only make bank, but also to contribute to the future and not to be left without a job, right? But the fact of the matter is technology is also advancing so fast that whatever you choose to pursue today, if you're at that age, might not be relevant in just 4 or 5 years' time.
Right.
And so choosing art as a career path is very interesting, but it's also misunderstood in many ways, because I do find many artists today are incorporating technology into their craft in one way or the other. You have also incorporated some technology, but I'd like to get your thoughts on what you've done so far, what you've seen out there that looks interesting to you, and what you can see yourself maybe getting into down the line.
Right. So there's so much.
Yeah.
Like, I think like the thing that you have to remember, like if you are at that age right now where you want to get into art but you're not sure, you know, is just having the confidence to know, like just having the confidence in yourself and that feeling of like, okay, I'm going to evolve with everything. Because I think if you have an idea like, okay, I'm going to paint and I want to be a painter in 10 years, that might be a detrimental thought to have, you know. And I think a lot of people, you know, at that time when we were studying also is like, okay, I'm going to be a painting major or I'm going to do this and this and this. And those people didn't end up doing art after uni. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you wanted to continue, it would just mean that you would have to evolve. And that's my constant struggle as well. Like I'm trying to evolve and be interesting, but also I'm trying to learn as I go. So like with the whole animation and everything, that's something that I had a vision that I wanted to create and I learned how to create it. And I think with the next things coming up, I want to still do, you know, the AR kind of canvases and stuff, but I want to do it on a bigger scale. So I want to do it, and I also want to have an app that isn't Artivive to do these things. So whether that means like creating my own app for my stuff or doing it as having a larger purpose, and then one of the functions of that app is to scan the artworks, whether that be murals or t-shirts or blah 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 blah, right? So this is still something that I'm, you know, that's definitely the next step. That's what I'm working towards. That's what I would like in terms of the tech stuff. But it's also one of those things that I don't know if I'm going to, if you ask me this question in a month, maybe I would have already moved past this idea and come up with something else that I want to try. So it's also, it's one of those things that I don't know. Asking some tough questions right now. And I don't have the answers.
That's okay, you know, that's totally fine, because I feel like with us it's very much the same. We have an idea today and it's almost gone tomorrow. Right. The idea is also gone tomorrow if we don't work on that idea actively. You know what I mean?
I have those moments as well, but then I would find like, so I had an idea for like a zine. So it was going to be a zine like 2 years ago. And recently, because my skills are on a different level than I was 2 years ago, instead of doing a zine, I want to do it like a whole interactive coffee table book. And interactive doesn't necessarily mean animations. It also could be like little flip animations in the bottom of the corner or something like that, right? So it's also like bringing back the old tech, but still, it's still cool, you know?
For sure.
But it's also like with the animations and things like this, I have a different set of skills that I can apply now to the same idea. So maybe the idea that you have today is going to make more sense in like a year or two with the skill set that you have then. It's like one of those things that you just have to keep for later. You're
so right. Sometimes our ideas are more ambitious than the skill sets that we have at that time, right? You're so right about that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, though.
Nothing wrong with it at all. But I think there is something wrong with not writing your ideas down.
Definitely.
You know, because if you have a really good idea and you lose it just because you didn't document it, I mean, that's a shame.
Honestly.
Because the world is robbed. The world is robbed. The world is robbed of a great idea that, yes, anybody else in the world could do because it's an idea at the end of the day, but it won't be your execution of the idea, right? which is why I think it's really beautiful when people do actually execute what's in their head.
Right.
Because you're not going to see it manifested in the same way if anyone else does it. Even if someone copied the work that you were doing, it won't look the same. You know? It's facts.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's true.
You did touch upon AR, which is kind of what you have been doing with your animations.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of having an app is also really cool, where everything just lives in one app. Rob, I want to talk to you about building your community of, I guess, art appreciators. I don't even know what you'd call them, or fans, whatever it is. Building your community, because none of what you create exists or is worth it if you don't have an audience that reacts to what you're creating. And your following is building up, and by following, I don't just mean like how many followers you have on Instagram. I mean the people who actually show up to your shows, the people who are actually interacting with you. I see, like, it's significant, from where I stand. How are you building your community? Is it happening very organically? Are you interacting with your community in a very specific type of way that helps you grow it? Like, what are you doing?
I don't know, to be honest. Like, I think it's just interacting with people in the space. So if I have an exhibition or something, or it's like these markets have been amazing, because like a lot of people are interested and don't expect to have somebody talking to them when they're just admiring things, but I'm that person that bugs people. Nice. And I guess it's also like going out sometimes, like you just go to a music event, whatever, or something fun, and somebody would like compliment my sticker or something like that I have on my bag or somewhere, and I'm like, oh, thank you, I made it. Yeah. Would you like one? Oh. And I actually make a lot of friends this way, and a lot of people feel like more inclined to come through and see other pieces, or see other bits and pieces. I had a few situations actually. So near Kebab House is a bunch of my stickers actually. Okay. And so the last it wasn't to Tron. The last market that I was part of, somebody just came up and was like, "This is you, right?" And I was like, "Oh my God, you took a picture of this. Where did you see the sticker?" And they told me it was near Kebab House, and they took a picture of it and then saw the Instagram on it, so followed my Instagram from there. Awesome. And they ended up coming through to the market. So I guess some people are just curious.
That's awesome.
It's happening pretty organically and pretty I don't know, like I'm just blessed.
You haven't observed that maybe people think your art looks cool and that's why they're coming through? Is it your presence online? Is it specifically who likes your art and people are influenced by those people? What do you think it is? Or is it a combination of all of that?
I really don't know. I think like in general, Hong Kong is such a weird place for people that do art as well, and people that appreciate art, because sometimes there has to be something connected to it. Yeah. So I don't feel like people would wholeheartedly show up just because they like the colors in my stuff. Yeah. Maybe people are curious about the techie side of it. Sure. Because I don't really post everything that I have on Instagram, but then I have like bits and pieces that I'll have at a market or whatever, and I post in the stories, and then maybe that's why. Yeah. But I think a lot of it has to do with the part of being relatable that you said. Yeah. Because most people that do come through multiple times, I get to know them on a personal level anyways. Yeah. And new people that come through, it's just, and it's genuinely exciting for me to talk to people that like my stuff. So it's not even like I'm trying to make sure that they secure my IG and like come through next time. It's just like, I genuinely appreciate people that are interested in getting some stickers or like whatever, Yeah. So I'm not sure what draws people to come to these exhibitions. I like to think it's the art. I like to think it's also because I'm kind of nice and lovely. Yeah, you totally are. Totally. But also maybe it's the technical side of things. Yeah. So maybe a combination of everything.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And that's the thing, like when people see you outside, you are this like lovely person, very warm, very inviting, But earlier in this episode, we did talk about that voice that is very loud in our heads, that is the unfavorable voice, the one that kind of brings us down, the one that confronts us with the possibility that whatever we're doing might not be worth it, worth our while, worth anybody's time. What are those moments like for you when you do experience self-doubt, any type of negativity, whatever it may be? And how do you get past that so that you can keep creating? Or does that negativity make its way into your work somehow?
Like self-doubt, the moments of self-doubt, I mean, it happens on like a weekly basis, basically.
Yeah.
Because at this point, it's kind of like I have nobody to hold me accountable. And this means that I'm heavily dependent on the people that give me feedback around me, you know, like somebody that says like, hey, you know, like maybe we can improve on presentation a little bit. Maybe we can change the frame colors or something, you know, like I value these opinions a lot, because if it wasn't for these people, then it's all on me.
Totally.
And it feels like, okay, I'm worrying about the emails that I'm not replying and the messages that I need to get back to. And like, okay, the prices, like I don't even have a price point for this and this. Oh, they asked me to do this client work. Okay, cool. But like, what do I tell them? What about invoices and this? There's so many things, so many different hats that I'm wearing at the same time, that these moments of doubt happen so often that I'm just like, okay, maybe I can't do this. Okay. You know, maybe I'm a great artist, but I'm not good enough with anything else right now. And that's definitely going to harm everything, right? And I just need to cry. Like I have to have a moment to feel sorry for myself. Like also, like I live with my partner, so like sometimes that can be scary to witness. And he's just like, oh my God, everything's fine. I'm like, please just let me like let it out. I just need to feel sorry for myself for like 30 minutes. And then it's like, okay, I can bounce back now, because if I told Rob from 5 years ago, not only would I have started that Instagram page, but hey, I had an exhibition. I was part of an exhibition that was at Soho House, and my artwork was actually used for the poster for that, and I did this. If I was having this conversation with me from that time, I would have like laughed. If anybody told me I was capable of that, I would have laughed. Like, no way. Me, no way. And the thing is, like, I always think about my future self having a conversation with me now. Like, imagine, like, you thought you couldn't do it. You thought those emails were too intimidating, but just imagine, like, you wouldn't be here in 5 years if I didn't have that bad day to like check myself. And also, I don't think the self-doubt is necessary as well, because sometimes, you know, you get it goes to your head a little bit. You're like, wow, I had a great market, and I have all of these people following me and liking my stuff, but you need to have that reality check sometimes where it's like, okay, get back, put your head back down, because like you're not done with these emails or whatever, you know. So I think the self-doubt is necessary. Checking yourself is necessary. Trusting yourself is necessary as well, because intuition is it. Like, intuition is the only thing that's gotten me this far, actually. And also, without that second guessing, I think people actually, I saw a meme not too long ago that was this like ridiculous talent. I think somebody was singing or something, and one of the comments was like, oh, this is definitely the new generation kids, the ones that don't get bullied. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, okay, so what are they trying to say with this? And then as an expanding that comment was everyone saying like, oh yeah, that makes sense actually, because they've never had to feel self-conscious, or they don't have to be as self-aware or whatever, because they've never had somebody check them. So it's like, why would they have to check themselves? And I thought that was quite funny, because it's like, yeah.
I know you told us you had an issue with contracts. I felt like that was a really, really big lesson to learn, because I think it's a lesson that a lot of new entrepreneurs and new independent artists or independent whatevers learn. Right. What happened?
Well, also, this wasn't the first instance where a contract had been an issue, right? Or like with the lack of a contract. And it's just that in this case, I was under the impression that everything was handled, you know. And last minute is when it was thrown in my face, like, oh, by the way, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm saying, like, okay, I didn't lose anything, but it could have been bad. It could have potentially been horrible, right? But that's why I'm just like, okay, moving forward, not only are contracts a very important part of the process, but I can't be as trusting. I can't be like working on faith. And a lot of the connections that I made early on in my career, when it came to like doing murals or doing this, there was no contracts, and there was also no like invoices or anything. I would just give the receipts, whatever. Yeah. And they would sort it out, like reimburse me. Yeah. But just because those were my experiences very early on, I can't take those for granted and think that everything's going to be that way, you know? And I knew better. Like for this instance, I knew better. Yeah. I knew not to go on good faith. I knew it. But it was just one of those situations where I was like, there's no way that they're this invested in me and gonna play me, you know? Yeah. Even though it happened and it could have been bad, but it's okay. We move.
Well, yeah, I think for anyone, because I think the part of the story that involved the contracts thing is I went through something very similar just a few years prior, and so that really hit home. Understanding contracts, understanding what you're getting into, understanding the people that you're getting into business with, right? Much better if you've known them for some time, so you know exactly what kind of person you're getting into business with. Because I've had a situation where I had a business partner and we did a ton of work to start up this company over like 4 months. And then out of the blue, the next day I found out that he just like fled the country.
What?
Yeah, he fled, right?
Oh, wow.
And
damn. Okay, so what were your learning experiences from that?
Well, I'll tell you my first reaction. My first reaction was like I felt nothing, right? Because I didn't want to jump to any conclusions. If anyone flees a country, they must have a pretty good reason for like fleeing a country. But the thing is, I reached out and I got one quick apology, but no explanation, which I found so strange. Right. And I mean, the good thing is, I did all the investment in terms of like branding, building like the company, the identity and all that stuff. So really what I lost most of at the end of the day was a lot of my time and effort. Right. But, I think what I learned from that is it's very important to know who you're going into business with or who you're going to be working with, what their personalities are like, and also reading into who people are, because I think people reveal themselves in different ways, whether it's like the language of that a person uses, what a person is like in different situations. So I would definitely recommend someone to do more than just business things with a person that you're getting into business with, which is natural practice. That's actually
really, really important to think of right now.
And I don't just mean like going out and getting drinks, right? Yeah. I mean like, I don't know, maybe like if you're both into sports, like going out to do some sports together, you know, going on a hike, speaking to them about things, you know, and just like being really observant as a person, right? Not too critical, of course. I'm not saying chop another person up, but just try and get to know a person. Like you said, intuition is a very real thing. Listen to your intuition.
I guess like also it takes time to learn how to read somebody, right?
Yes.
So that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Exactly. And then the step 2 after that is when you do get into a bound agreement through contract, make sure you read all the all the T&Cs, you know exactly what you're getting into. But also make sure if you're ready to be bound with another person that both of you sign a contract. Because there are situations when one person signs the contract and they're the person providing all of the resources, and then you pass on the contract to the other person and they don't sign it. Also, number 3 is make sure both people have a copy of the signed contract. That's super important. Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. I'm kicking myself now listening to this.
Well, hey, I mean, it's a good thing, right? We live and we learn.
Yeah. Next time.
Rags, we end every episode with the same question to all the guests. which is what conversation would you have with a younger version of yourself, and what conversation are you hoping to have with an older version of yourself at any point in time?
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew. I don't think I would say anything to my younger self, to be honest. I don't, like, I had a lot of confusing moments. I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of, a lot to go through. But at the same time, I wouldn't change anything just because I don't think my work would be as solid as it is now. And I don't think it would be work that I love as much as I do right now if I had changed anything from the past. But if I could, like, pass on a note without it being a conversation, I would be like, okay, just be present. Everything's okay. You're going to be fine. Okay, that's it. But not a conversation where she can be like, oh, so I don't have to be self-conscious. No, she needed that.
Gotta be,
like, young Rob needed that. If I could talk to an older version of myself, I would want to know, like, at what point do I settle? Like, what point am I happy and content with everything? At what point did I think, like, oh yeah, you know what? Like, I don't have that self-doubt anymore. I'm not stressed on a regular basis. I feel whole. I feel like I've not only made it as an artist and a person, but I also feel like, okay, like, let me just have a garden and mind my business. And I don't have to worry about the outside world. I can live in my bubble and I'm content. Like, this is okay. I would like to talk to that version of myself and be like, okay, so how long?
Yeah, when does
like,
that happen?
how long do I need to go? But having said all that, though, like, I'm very pleased with where I'm at now. And I think, having been through what I have been through, I have learned to be more present now. I'm taking everything step by step, and yeah, I'm pretty happy, actually. Like, I know that I said, like, okay, yeah, I want to be, like, content, but I just mean, like, there's no stress in life. I don't have to worry about anything. Now it's good to worry because I'm still hustling, but I'm happy. That's okay. We're good. You good?
I'm great. I have to remind myself of that consistently. I have to remind myself consistently that I'm headed in the right direction, and I have to just trust myself, and also not be distracted, and also remind myself that there is power in just being consistent with anything.
That's true.
There's
I think sometimes we forget also. We get so lost in it, caught up in work and everything. But yeah, we have to take a breather to be grateful too. We're doing the damn thing.
We're doing the damn thing.
That's it.
We just did the damn thing.
We just did the damn thing.
Awesome. Robin, thank you for just showing up and speaking to us on the Nomadic Mic. I think a lot of people are going to see themselves in your shoes very soon, and I think this episode is definitely going to help them in some type of way. So thank you.
Thank you for having me and making me talk. This was great.
Cool. Yeah, and we're done.